This is the Impulse, completely flat, okay? And this bass is still very aggressive in the mid-range, but notice how sweet and focused it gets.
What's interesting to see here is we're just not demoing any amp, we're demoing the settings that we're using on our gigs, on our jobs. And what's interesting to listen to here is you talked about in a 15-piece band with 50 open mics, the Mesa does an amazing job of keeping your footprint very focused. You're not stepping in anyone else's frequency domain, which front of house engineers love. Mm-hmm. And when they love you, they turn you up. So that's a good thing. But what we notice here is with that EQ off, that's EQ'd for your Coral Reefer situation. Mm-hmm. With it off, you all of a sudden have a bigger footprint. So they, especially on the low E string, it takes up a lot more space now than it did with your custom EQ. Mm-hmm. And that's really interesting to me.
It is. It's very interesting. Well, it gets a lot silkier.
Yeah.
I was, this EQ is not about, it's not just about more mids, more highs. This EQ is about the character of your bass. And what I love about it is when you boost the upper mids, it not only makes it more upper mid-rangey, it changes the character to a very aggressive sound. Now this sound with it flat is much more like, I should really have you do thumb stuff because thumb stuff is not my thing. But do you have a pick handy?
Asking me if I have a pick handy, that's like, asking mom if she wears underwear.
Whoa! Wow!
Woo!
That transient, the transient attack of the Impulse, now this is completely flat. I got tone backed off a little bit, and very aggressive, very focused. Here's with EQ on. 2 knobs, I believe that was the change. I'm going to have to crank this a little bit down. Very aggressive.
And there's a lesson not only about Mesa, but about bass EQing from somebody that's done it for a lot of years and knows. That EQ, it doesn't sound as big and mighty and cool by itself, but who cares about that? It's all about how it sounds where you work. And that was a great example of that. It's like that bass tone is smaller, but it does a different job.
Well, the other thing too, this is an interesting situation, and you don't get 50,000 people to listen to a bass playing that by itself. That's not what they're buying tickets for. They're buying tickets for what they feel in their gut when they hear you playing in the band. That's the whole deal. Now, one of the other things that I love about the Mesa is my live situation. I'm the only guy on stage with a bass, with a speaker cabinet behind me, okay, right now. And hopefully that'll change in the future. But the guitar guys, they've got their rigs, back there in their mic because they're cranking. Now, because I have a speaker on stage, that means that my stage volume needs to be really low. And what's amazing to me is that the Mesa, the punch is uniform all the way down to almost off. And that's very unusual in amps. Usually you got to really drive an amp. Okay. I mean, that's basically my stage volume here, which is...
And it retains its character.
It's very low.
Yeah.
I mean, it's low. Probably a little bit louder than that.
Yeah, it still sounds cracked.
Yeah, it's very hard to do. You hear a lot of amps, and you get them below cranked, and suddenly they don't do much.
Here we are, checking out still Jim's Impulse through his Powerhouse 212, which this amp, in addition to doing the thing that Jim has shown you, it is also competing and beating a lot of the big brands out there who do a very clean, modern, gospel-y slap tone. Mm-hmm. And so here we are. We've re-EQ'd a little bit to make this amp just put it in a whole different set of clothing, kind of, So here, even like a sloppier, like a. Very clean. Even when I play dirty and get a fret noise, that fret noise is clean and pristine, right? Like very modern.
Extremely focused. And what I love about the Impulse is it's really does clean and silky and punchy, and it also, as I showed earlier, does extremely aggressive, extremely raunchy too, and it just retains that footprint.
And it does a mid-rangey aggressive raunchiness with a little bit more preciseness than the carbine, which is, I'm sure, what they were shooting for when they designed it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when looking at the three different amps, it's definitely like one level, and then the next level, and the next level. I think it's very much
of dirtiness,
and footprint bigness, and just hair, just whatever you call it. It's
And on the Impulse, what I like to do a lot is kind of play an open string, kind of ballady melodic stuff on bass. And usually for me, instead of going with that Jocko-ish mid-rangey lead tone, I like the super scooped modern gospel slap tone. I play, like. And it really has a nice, very modern. It's very, instead of maybe like a warm piano sound like I could get with one of the basses through that, this is still warm, but it's more precise and modern, kind of like a great keyboard piano. It really separates my notes well.
Big time.
And this modern sort of EMG pickup high end, once again, most of the amps that does this modern gospel clean tone get brittle. I mean, no earplugs. We're playing pretty loud. It's definitely. Got it.
Now that's with the Powerhouse 212, and it's very punchy. It's really a great matching.
Yeah.
It really works great.
Yeah.
That's the Impulse